Hello, my name is Arun Gupta and I work for Oracle. In this webinar, I'll show you how you can easily develop and deploy your Java EE6 applications using Eclipse and GlassFish. In order to get started with Eclipse, there are a couple of options. First option is to take a look at Eclipse Helios, which is the Java EE IDE for web developers. So choose Eclipse, About Eclipse, and you can see this is Helios Service Release 1 and this is Java EE IDE of the version of Eclipse. In order to get started, you go to Workbench, go to the Servers tab, right click, New, Server. GlassFish is not available here by default, so we're going to add that support. So cancel this, go to Help, go to Install New Software, click on Add here, type the name as GlassFish Update Center, and here we're going to type the URL of the location where GlassFish Update Center is located. So this URL is download.java.net/glassfish/eclipse and /helios. So the name is very intuitive, download.java.net/glassfish/eclipse/helios. Click on OK. Now the site is added. In order for all the items that are available in the update center to be seen, unselect this checkbox and then all the items are shown over here. You also don't want to update your existing Eclipse install, otherwise it will take quite much longer. So disable this checkbox as well. I want all of these plugins, which is GlassFish Server Tools, Java EE5, Java EE6 documentation, which are Java docs and APIs, to be installed for me. So select on all, click on Next. Once it figures out that all the items can be easily installed, click on Next. Notice this is Eclipse Public License version 1.0. I'm going to accept the terms of the license agreement for all of them and click on Finish. At this point, Eclipse downloads the plugins for me and installs them easily. And you can also monitor the progress bar down over here. So we will let it run in the background for now. In the meanwhile, we will switch our focus to Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse, and let's take a look at that. So this is Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse. If we go to Eclipse, About Eclipse Platform, this is based on Eclipse Helios release, but it adds certain other frameworks and plugins by default. So if you click on the OEP button, it shows you Oracle Coherence, Database Tools, Spring Tools, WebTier, WebLogic Tools as well, in addition to the GlassFish Server Tools. So click on Close here, and we can go back to the Workbench. And switch to our Java EE perspective. Once we switch to the perspective, we're going to clean some windows that we don't need. So our bench is now ready. We go to Servers, right click here, say New, Server, and I'm going to search for the text here, GlassFish, and you can see GlassFish Server Open Source Edition version 3, that is Java EE6 compliant, can be easily installed. So you select that version of GlassFish, provides reasonable host name and server name, click on Next. If the application server is not installed, then you can specify the directory, click on this button, and this will install the application server for you. But for us, we're going to specify the location where we want the where we have application server pre-installed. Another thing to note is that your JVM must be or JDK must be 1.6 onwards, because that is a requirement for GlassFish 3. So for now, I'm going to specify the location where my GlassFish server 3.0.1 is locally installed on this machine. So as soon as you complete the appropriate directory name, the button is enabled and error checking takes care of. Click on next. Provides me the domain directory, domain name, administrator ID, requires me to specify the password. This is an interesting property. Preserve sessions across redeployment. This allows us to preserve HTTP sessions across multiple redeployments, and we'll take a look at this feature later on. For now, click on finish. And so our GlassFish application server is now pre-configured here and installed for us. Now if we switch back to Eclipse Helios, here it's saying, it's want to proceed further with the installation of the plugins. Click on OK. And you can monitor the progress. Once the plugins are all installed, click on Restart Now. And now your Eclipse Helios, which is a pure Helios environment, is starting up, and you can start doing your development as if you're doing in Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse, at least from the Java EE perspective. For today's webinar, we're going to focus on Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse, as that has everything pre-configured for us already. So we're back into Oracle Enterprise Pack for Eclipse, and let's get started. In order to get started, we're going to right click on the server that was installed for us, and it shows the status as stopped. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say start my server. So this is going to start my GlassFish application server on the local machine, and it will also display the log files. You can monitor the progress over here. Starting GlassFish server, 23% complete. Once the application server is ready, it shows the status as started and synchronized. I can right click on my GlassFish server here. Let's see if we can make this window bigger here. Right click here, go to my GlassFish menu. I can fire up my GlassFish Update Center over here, which allows me to update the existing binaries as my GlassFish install. You can register your GlassFish server, which allows you certain additional benefits like specific documentations and other tips. You can of course buy commercial support for Oracle GlassFish server. You can get the latest news from the aquarium. You can also view the web-based administration console from within the IDE itself. And the most interesting one for us is the log file. If I click on this, it shows me the log file for the application server as it started for us. So now our application server is started. I'm going to create a dynamic web project here by right-clicking in the Project Explorer, say New, and say Dynamic Web Project. Let's say I'm going to call my project as My Friends, and my target runtime here is GlassFish Server Open Source Edition 3, which is Java EE 6 compliant. The dynamic web module version is 3.0, that is coming from servlet 3.0, which is the component specification from Java EE 6. Then I'm going to click on Finish. My GlassFish project gets created, and here you can see if I expand my project, then I have a web content. Within web content I have an index.jsp, which is the page shown over here. This is the visual representation of the page, and this is the textual representation of the page. In order to run this project, I can right click here, I can say run as, run on server. Shows me the GlassFish server that is already ready. I can select this, use this server when running this project, save some typing for us. Let's take all the defaults and click on finish. So my project is going to get deployed on the existing GlassFish installation, and then my web page is going to show up nicely. Here it comes, hello world. So that's very nice and very easy. Now if I go back to my servers tab here, I can double click on the link over here, and here it shows me certain properties about the application server. Now these all we are familiar with because we configured them. If I expand the publishing properties, this is a good one. Here it allows us to publish the project automatically to the application server every time we change a file in the project. By default, it does not publish, but we can say automatically publish when resources change, and I can change the interval to say 0 seconds. When I change it to 0 seconds, that means my project automatically gets published to my application server every time a change is made. So the IDE takes care of the basic details of deployment, and the developer continues to focus on the core competency, which is the business logic. So let's hit Control S, save the preferences here, and close this window. In order to see how the whole thing works, I go to my index.jsp, add a couple of more exclamation marks here, save the page here. Now you can see it says started and synchronized. Back here in my browser, I refresh the page and the change is available to me instantly. So that's what I'm talking about. Now let's add a simple servlet to this application and see how this behavior is visible over there. So right click, say new, and I'm going to add a new servlet. Let's say my package name here is org GlassFish samples, and the class name is say test servlet. Okay, I can click on next and show you the values that are specified forward. Here are some description, initialization parameters, additional URL mappings. Click on next. I want my do get and do post methods to be generated, so I'm taking all the defaults. Click on finish. My test servlet is generated. Notice it has @web-servlet annotation, and see how my Java docs are automatically shown within the IDE itself, truly giving you an integrated experience. The annotation also allows me to specify the path at which the servlet is accessible, so I don't need to have a explicit deployment descriptor. So if I expand my webinf folder over here, there is no web.xml over here. Back in my servlet, it extends HTTP servlet, which allows me to maintain the interface or the method signatures, which are do get and do post. Now let's say in do get I want to print some values. So let me delete this code and borrow the code from one of my textbooks. So here is the code that I'm going to borrow. Copy it, back in my IDE, paste the code. Let's resolve the imports. Now this entire screencast is going to be hosted on my blog, which is blogs.sun.com/arungupta. So this code fragment can be very easily copied from there as well. And I will anyway publish the entire project on my blog. So let's save this servlet here. Once the servlet is saved, my project is automatically deployed. I can go to the browser here, and here I can say test servlet, and I hit enter, and my request, my output from the servlet is shown very nice and very easily for us. So again, you're focusing on writing a business logic or your components, and the deployment and those details are taken care of by the IDE. Back in my servlet, I want to show you another interesting feature that Eclipse and GlassFish together provides for you. And that is the ability to preserve your sessions across multiple deployments. Let's take a look at that. So here I'm going to make some space so that I can add my code. Let me go back to my textbook, copy this code, and paste it here. As I said earlier, this code is going to be available on my blog, so you can copy this code from there itself. But this code is very simple. Is having a variable called as count, gets it from a session. If it's null, initializes it to 0. If it's not null, then gets the value, increments by 1, and sets it back in the session. And it also prints the value of the count attribute on the page. So essentially, This is printing how many times the page has been accessed. So let me save this page first so that my project gets automatically deployed. Go back to my servlet, refresh the page, and here it says accessed one time. Let's refresh the page one more time, accessed two times, one more time, and now three times. So let me go back to my test servlet page now, change some text here, and save it. Guess what happens? IDE automatically deploys my project. Go back to my browser here. Now this is 3. Refresh the page here. This becomes 4. So my sessions have been preserved across multiple redeployments. This is purely a development time feature. If you want, you can disable it or use it as per your will. Now let's add some database functionality to this application. For that, I'm going to expand my window over here. Look at the Data Source Explorer, and you will see a sample JavaDB database is automatically created for me in the database connections. Now if you're using Eclipse, then you need to start the database explicitly from outside. So let's go to a command line and start my database. Here I am. I'm in my GlassFish directory where my GlassFish is installed, and I'm going to fire bin asadmin start database command. Asadmin is a command line interface that allows you to manage your entire GlassFish installation using command line. So let's start my database that comes bundled with my GlassFish instance. So here my database is executed or started successfully. I go back to my IDE here. I can right click here and I can say connect to the database now. So it connects to the database. In order to be more effective for database development, I would need to switch perspective. So go to Window, open Perspective, Other, and choose a database development perspective. Now in my database development perspective, I can expand the sample database, expand the schemas, expand the app schema, and look at the tables. It has a whole bunch of tables that are already available for me. Now I can create my new table very easily, edit existing tables and things like that. It all depends where your database location is and things like that. But for my purpose, I'm going to add a new table and show you the entire development process. So I'm going to open a scrapbook here. And in here, I'm going to create a database table. So go to my textbook, and I'm going to copy my table definition over here and paste it here. This is going to create a simple table friend. One field name, varchar 30. This is the primary key, not null. And I have a age field, which is the int type. Okay. My sample JavaDB database is pre-selected, and database name is also selected. Right click here, say execute all, and this is going to execute the query. So my database table is created. Now if I go to tables here and I say refresh and I expand the tables again, here is my friend table. Now I can right click here and I can say data and I can say edit. And I can actually start adding data to the database very easily. So let's say I add the first name as Peter Humphrey, and let me add some markup age for him. Let me add another age, another friend of mine, John Klingon, and let's say 36, and another friend, Alexandra Huff, and another age. Okay, so once we enter the data, we click on save here, control save. So the data is successfully saved, and you can see the queries that are being executed very easily over here. So now I have a database table. I have some data in that database table. I can switch back to my Java EE perspective. Window, open perspective, other, Java EE. Okay. I'm back in my database Java EE perspective. So in order to do database development in my Java EE project, I would need to add the right facets. So right click on my project, go to properties, search on facets, and enable the JPA facet here. And it says for the configuration required, So click on that. First thing, we need to make it Eclipse 2.0.x. And we also need to disable library configuration because the JPA implementation is pre-bundled with our GlassFish application server. And then we need to specify the connection also, which is sample Java DB database. After that, I'm going to click on OK here, and all my changes are done. So I click on OK here one more time. Now in this project, I can start creating JPA entities very easily. And for that, I right click here. Now I have a new menu called as JPA tools. I can say generate entities from tables. And it shows me all the tables that are available in the sample Java DB database. Now your database dump may look very different. You may not have all these tables. I just happen to have these tables in here. I can select friend. That's what I care about. Click on next. No associations. Click on finish. And if I expand my Java resources, I look at all GlassFish samples. This is my test servlet. And I look at the default package. This is my friend.java. Now it's not a good practice to keep it into the default package. So I'm going to just move it to my or GlassFish samples package for now. Well, that was a copy. So let's delete this one from here. One change that we will need to make for that is in my meta-inf directory, or actually in my JPA content, I have a persistence.xml. In the persistence.xml, I can look at connection. And here I would need to specify my JTA data source, which is jdbc/sample, which is pointing to the pre-configured JDBC resource in my GlassFish installation. And also, if I look at my source here is specifying the class in the default package. Now we just moved it to org glassfish.samples package, so we will change that as well. Okay, so that takes care of that. So let's save all of this. Now I can go back to my servlet. In my servlet, I can very easily say inject a persistence unit. This is going to give me an entity manager factory. Let's resolve the imports over here. First one, second one. Now from the entity manager factory, in my doGet method, I can say from the entity manager factory, create entity manager. From the create entity manager, I can say create string based query, and I can specify my query, which is select f from friend f, and then I can say get result list. Then I can say show me the 0th friend. This I know returns a friend to me like this. And finally, I can actually print some value over here. So I could say out.print, and I can say friend's name. That would be f.getName, and close it over here. So let's save this result over here, or save this file over here. Once the publishing is done, which is pretty instant and is already synchronized, I can go to my output page, refresh it over here, and here it says friend's name is Peter Humphrey, which is a name that we indeed added to our database. So you can quickly add database interaction in your application using a servlet. But that's not the fun. Typically, you want to do your database kind of actions in your EJBs, because that gives you the ability to do container managed transactions, declarative securities, and things like that. So let's take a look on how we can add an EJB to this application and do some database transactions over there. One of the new capabilities of Java EE6 is the ability to add an EJB within a WAR file. So that is very impressive. You no longer need to have any special deployment descriptor or any special packaging. Everything bundled together in a WAR file. So let's take a look at that. Right click on the project, say new, and we can go to other, and here I can search for session bean for instance, and I'm going to create a session bean here. Click on next. My package, I'm going to pick as or GlassFish samples as a package, and I'm going to call my class name. Let's say this is going to be friend EJB, and then I say there are different types of it. Stateless, stateful we are familiar with. We can also create a singleton EJB that allows us to have a single instance of the enterprise Java bean across the VM per application. And this is going to be a no interface view. Let's take a look at that. So once we click on finish over here, it creates a local EJB for us. Notice there is no interface. That is something new in Java EE 6. Just one simple class, one annotation, and that makes my EJB. So very cool. Now, in order to do my database interaction here, I don't need to inject my entity manager factory. EJBs are non-reentrant by nature. So here I can say persistence context, and this is going to give me entity manager instead. Let me resolve my imports first. Once I resolve my import, let me add a simple method over here. And that method is going to say public list get list, and here I can say add the closing parenthesis, say entity manager, create query, and add the same query here. Select F from friend F. I can say get result list, and then let's say here we can just say get or actually we return the entire list. Okay, this we can say return. So we're returning the entire list over here. So let's resolve the imports first from Java util package, and here I'm returning the entire list. Just for convenience, I can also add another method here, which would be public string, and I could say, for example, get name, and here I can take int id as a parameter, and then in that case what I could do is I could say get list, then I can say get id for instance. So we're adding another convenience method over here. This we know is going to give us a friend, and let's cast it to friend, and here we can say friend dot get name. So just a couple of convenience methods for us to get started with. Okay, so we have our EJB now. Another cool functionality that we have in Java EE 6 is the ability to have a Java EE JSF page, and the backing bean being a EJB instead of a managed bean. So let's take a look at that. Let's see what the details show over here. Okay, we'll take a look at this in a second. So let's see, public class friend EJB. Oh, there you go. It forgot to add our opening brace over here. So let's save this file one more time. And now the project is successfully deployed. So now we have our EJB. Let's create our JSF page and use this EJB directly over there to display the results. Okay, let's take a look at that. One of the cool things in JSF2 is the ability to use facelets as the templating language. So we're going to create a JSF2 facelets page that is using pure XHTML and CSS for the viewing logic, and all the backing logic is going to exist in our enterprise Java bean, specifically these two methods, list get list and get name. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is right click here, say new, and we're going to create an XHTML page, and this XHTML page is going to live in the webinf folder because we don't want it to be exposed to the outside public. Call this page as template. Click on next, and this is going to be a facelet template, And if you see, this is using XHTML. It has a div header section using UI colon insert. It's got a content section here and a footer section. So header, content, and footer. So if I click on finish over here, this generates a template.xhtml page for me. So if I minimize this window over here, I can add some title here saying my friend's application. Scroll down. In here, I can add my regular HTML syntax saying my friends. And let's say in the bottom section, I go down here, or in the footer section, I could add maybe a couple of line breaks, and I could say powered by GlassFish and Eclipse. Okay, so I save the page. But the template by itself is not compelling. We have to define a page that will use this template and then render some output. So let's create such a page now. Right click, new, a new XHTML page. And this time we're going to keep it in the web content folder. Call the page as .xhtml. So click on next. And this is going to be a facelet composition page. It's a similar page. Instead of using UI colon insert, it uses UI colon define, and it also has a place for saying which template are you inheriting from. So you have UI colon define header, content, and footer as well. So click on finish here. So my show.xhtml page gets generated here. Let's say I specify the location where it's going to pick the template from, which is template.xhtml. So if I look at my webinif folder here, this is my template.xhtml. That's the page I care about here. I scroll down and I can see my header, content, and footer sections. So let's save this page. Now we want this page to be rendered using JSF runtime. So typically if you're using a JSF 2.0 annotation, then faces servlet, which is a servlet which uses the JSF runtime to render page, is automatically registered for you. But now since we are not doing that, let's explicitly register that servlet. So for that, I'm going to borrow some code component. I'm going to add a web.xml fragment, copy it in here, webinif, new. I'm going to create other, and I'm going to select XML, pick XML here, and call this as web.xml file. I click on finish. Let this error, ignore this error for now. Select the fragment here, paste the fragment that we just copied, fix the broken strings, and now we have our web.xml. So if I save this file, the project will be successfully deployed. In this, we are registering the faces servlet, which is specific to our runtime. So close web.xml, and I'm going to save my show.xhtml as well over here. Now I have my webinif template.xhtml. I can go to my output here. Now instead of test servlet, I can say faces. I can say show.xhtml, and my xhtml page shows up nicely over here. Now if I go back to my show.xhtml, and here let's say I delete my header section and footer section, I save the page here, go back to my browser output or here and refresh it, it automatically inherits the sections that were not defined in this page by the template, from the template. So that's pretty cool. Now in show.xhtml, I need to display the value coming from the database. And so that's what I'm going to do now. In the content section, I'm going to add the business logic to pull the data from my backing bean, which as I mentioned earlier, is going to be my EJB bean over here. Okay, so first let's add the content to show.xhtml. Let's borrow the code for that. Copy this code here in my browser or in my IDE, paste the code here. All it's doing is using a h:\data table, which is a standard JSF component, picking the value from friend ejb.list, and listing the name and age of each friend. So let's save this file over here. Back in my EJB, now if I want this EJB to be injectable in an expression language or such as an XHTML page, then I have to add the @named annotation over here. This is coming from the context and dependency injection. Seems like the import is already resolved for us, so which is good. So I put @named annotation here. Now in order to enable CDI injection, I also have to add a empty beans.xml file in the webinif directory. So right click here, new, select other. We pick our XML file here and we call it as beans.xml. This goes in the webinif directory. Click on finish. Ignore this error for now. I'm gonna make this file empty. It's only a marker file, so no contents in here required for this particular project. So I have my friend EJB, which is marked as @named. This EJB is a backing bean for my show.xhtml over here, friend EJB.list. So from the friend EJB, I got my getList method that gets executed, returns the entire list, and then I'm displaying the data in show.xhtml over here. Okay, so now since my project is automatically deployed, let's go to the output page and refresh it. As soon as I refresh it, it shows me all the 3 database entries that I made earlier. So that's very easy. Now, one of the big advantages of having EJBs as the backing bean of JSF is the ability to bring transactional security, all of those aspects of EJBs up in the web tier. There is no need for any glue for using a managed bean and then delegating it to the EJB in the backend tier. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another page in this. So say new, another XHTML page. This page I'm going to call it as create, and notice this is in web content folder because we do want it to be accessible. Click on next. This is again a composition page. If you realize here, I got my composition, template, header, content, and footer. So I can borrow the template from my show.xhtml, copy the template location, back in my create, specify the location here, and I can remove my header and I can remove my footer. So that's kind of cool. Save the page. Let's take a look at it. So I go to my browser output and I say create.xhtml. So our template page looks nice. You can basically use this concept to create a consistent look and feel, or provide the consistent look and feel to your entire website. One template, multiple using pages. Now back in my create.xhtml, I want to add a form which will accept the input, for example. So let me borrow some code for that. Let me copy this code here, back in here, and I'm going to increase this window. And paste the code here. Once I paste the code here, you can see it's a very simple HTML code or XHTML code. It's a form with a panel grid, 3 columns showing the prompt, then a text input where it accepts the name, and then it shows error messages. Same thing for age. And then I have a command button. Command button action is show. What that means is once you click on this button, this is a submit button. So once you click on this button, it's going to render the next page as show.xhtml. And I also have an action listener which says friend ejb.create. So in my friend ejb, it's going to invoke the method create. Okay. So let's save this page first. And notice I'm binding everything to my friend bean. So if I go here, this is my friend bean. Now let's make this as a CDI injectable bean. So I'm going to add @named here and resolve the import for that one. And I'm going to make this as a request scoped bean. So add request scoped annotation as well. Resolve that import too. So this gets taken care of. Now back in my create, I have my friend name and age properties bound correctly. I just need to add this method called as friend ejb.create. So if I go to my friend EJB, I can add a new method here saying public void create, and here actually at the top I could say at inject, and I'm saying inject the friend for me. Okay, let's say f. Let's resolve this import first. Coming from JavaX inject package. So now the friend that is bound in the XHTML page is automatically injected in my bean here too. So here I can say new friend equals new friend, and I can get the values from the injected friend. So f dot get name and f dot get age. Okay, so that's that. Now this could be easily added as a convenience constructor. So if I go to my friend over here, I can add a convenience constructor here such as this: public friend string name int age, and I can say this dot name equals name, this dot age equals age. So this file looking good. Back in my friend.ejb, this code is looking nice too. And here our entity manager is already injected for us. All I'm going to say is em.persist, and I'm going to pass my object friend here. So that takes care of that. So we save the code here one more time. This is my create.xhtml. It's got the page over here. So now I go to my browser output. Refresh the page here. I refresh it and I see my name, age, and submit. And if I look back at my show.xhtml, or actually create.xhtml, the next page that will be show is show, which is the default navigation rule we are using from JSF2. So in here, I'm going to add a name as say Adam left tick, and I'm going to give him an age say 32. And once I click on submit, my show.xhtml page shows up correctly and showing Adam Leftick has been added to the list. So it's very easy to create, a simple website with proof of concept, connecting to a database, consistent look and feel, database interaction, servlets, transactional and declarative security up in your web tier itself in a very easy manner using Eclipse and Java EE6 and GlassFish. Another aspect that I would like to show you in this application is how easy it is to add timer-based events. So let's say I right click here, say new, and I'm going to create a new EJB timer. Now this is one of the significant improvements we have made as part of EJB 3.1. Now the timers can be very easily created using cron-like syntax. So let's say first thing I do here is choose my package. Then I specify my class name, say call this as friend timer. Okay, and here is where I specify my cron-like syntax saying this is cron-like syntax saying do this activity every 10th second, every minute, which is starting 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. each weekday, every month, every day of the month, every year, and some info. So I click on finish here, and my stateless EJB gets generated automatically for me, called as friend timer. And I have a method here which basically says schedule timeout. Every time this the timer information specified here triggers in, this method body gets executed. So if I expand this and I look at my console over here, you can see add schedule called at. So this method is being executed every 10th second. So you can see 50:00, and then it will be called in next few more seconds again. So it's very easy to schedule your timers. Now you can also make this timer bean as a singleton, and that means a single instance of this bean across the VM. And you can also make this as eagerly initialized, as at the startup of the application by specifying at startup annotation. So at singleton makes it singleton, and at startup makes this bean, make sure that this bean is eagerly initialized. And if I want, I can resolve the imports over here, but we're going to ignore that for now. So okay, Now that's that. And the last thing I want to show you as part of Java EE6 development over here is how we can easily publish a RESTful resource from within Eclipse. For that, say new, create a RESTful web service from pattern. I'm going to choose again my same package over here, call the class name as friend resource. This is going to be a simple root resource. There are other patterns that you can choose as well. I'm going to specify the path as friend, and I'm going to return, say, text plain or application JSON. Let's choose text slash plain for now as the return MIME type. Now JAX-RS allows you much wider type of MIME types, even custom MIME types. This could be an advanced topic. So click on finish for now. So here you see my friend resource file being generated for me automatically. Now I got this resource is accessible at path friend, and I got my if this resource is accessed using HTTP GET method, then this is the method that gets invoked and it returns text slash plain. Now in order to be able to use this resource, I will have to add the JAX-RS facet to my application. So right click, properties, enable the JAX-RS facet, click on further configuration, and I'm going to add an implementation specific servlet container or servlet actually, which will basically allow to publish all the resources on a specified URL, which is /JAX-RS in this case. So click on OK, click on OK. And now if I look at my web.xml, in addition to registration of faces servlet, now it has my JAX-RS generated servlet as well. Okay, so that takes care of that, and I have my friend resource over here. And here, let's say I remove this code, and this is string, so I just say simple hello world. Okay, let's say I do like that for now. So I save this over here. So my project is now automatically deployed to the GlassFish container. I can go here. In here I can specify JAX-RS, and I can say friend, and then my text resource, whatever the output was exhibited by, or whatever output was given by that method is being shown here correctly. Now I can start getting fancy here. If I want this resource to have injection enabled, I can make this as a managed bean. Managed bean is a new concept in Java EE6. Let's resolve this import first. Notice this is coming from JavaX annotation package, not faces package. Managed bean, allows the bean to be managed by a container very easily. And now what I can do is I can say inject a persistence unit here. That's going to give me entity manager factory. And down here, also say, for example, int id. Okay, and then actually instead of injecting my persistence units here, since that logic is already encapsulated, I would rather inject my EJB, which is my friend EJB, and call this as bean. Okay, let's resolve that import instead. Now this is my int id, and let's say my friend resource is accessible at with a specific ID. I want to access a particular friend. Now I want this ID to be mapped to this parameter of this method. So all I need to say is at path param, and I'm going to give the value as ID. Okay, and in here I could say how about you go resolve it. Okay, import path param, this particular annotation as well. Now in here I could very easily say, now if you remember from our friend EJB, we have this get name method here. So we could just invoke this method and then get the results required. So I could go here and I could say, for example, bean dot get name, and I could pass the same ID here. And instead of saying hello world, for instance, we could say bean dot get name. Okay, So now the idea is, if we are specifying the ID, we are saying of a particular friend, then we are saying hello to that friend. So if I save it here, now the project automatically gets redeployed. I go here, all I need to say is /1 is going to say hello to my first friend that I added. If I say 2, it's going to say hello to my second friend. So again, very simple, very easy. Just by using conventions over configuration, you can do a lot more powerful things with Java EE6 and Eclipse combination. So we certainly hope you can try it. All the code that is used in this screencast and the webinar is going to be available on my blog. So if we go to the URL, this is blogs.sun.com/Arun Gupta. All the code templates, the complete project will be available on my blog. And of course, you can watch the entire video by itself. Thank you very much.